All right. Hello, everyone. This is the late morning program. Not really in the morning, but not the late morning either, quite in the evening. But this is the late morning program with Namras. I'm Namras, your host, and I'm here with His Grace Vaisesika prabhu, who is a wonderful book distributor, guru, devotee in ISKCON of many, many years, 40 plus years. And we're going to talk a little bit about the title of this talk was the relevancy of marathons in this day and age, marathons being book marathons. In the history of ISKCON, there have been marathons during Christmas time, during summertime, when devotees would put an extra push to go out on book distribution. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about this with Prabhuji. But I wanted to start out by asking Prabhu, how did you join Krishna consciousness?
Oh, thanks for asking. Well, first, I offer my respects to my spiritual master, Srila Prabhupada, to you, Prabhu, for your wonderful show and being such a nice devotee, and to everyone who's listening. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Well, I started off as a seeker in my teens in high school. I was looking for something, and I found it when I got one of Srila Prabhupada's books. And that really inspired me, the medium of the book. I grew up around books. My parents were academics, but when I got Srila Prabhupada's books and I felt the presence of the great teachers of bhakti and the spiritual world, then I just I feel ever indebted to that experience I had in coming in contact. So I have a love for books, and especially for Srila Prabhupada's books. Wonderful. So I came to Krishna consciousness. I signed up for it before I quit high school, and my parents somehow or other let me.
Wow. How many years has it been?
I joined in 1973 in San Francisco.
Wonderful.
And so whatever that is to now, 47.
Wow. Wonderful. And if you could tell us a little bit about the history of marathons. Like, what is the marathon? Like, I kind of touched on what it is, but like a little bit more about the history of it and Srila Prabhupada's relationship with it.
Well, marathons, I mean, just in general, human beings are motivated to hit goals. And I noticed walking by a basketball court every morning and every evening. It's one in my park nearby. I take a brisk walk morning and evening. There's always somebody out there playing. And I just noticed that it's a natural tendency for humans to try to hit a target. If you just dropped in from another planet and you look at people throwing a ball through a hoop over and over again and obsessed with it, you start to think, oh, what are the nature of these people, these humans? Give them a net, give them a hoop, give them anything, and they'll go for it. And humans have been running marathons for millennia, really trying to outdo themselves, see if they can go a little faster, measuring how long it takes, and seeing how much they can endure. I mean, it's just part of the human nature to say, how much further can we go? How much faster can we go? And so forth. So I think it's a natural tendency for people to want to test themselves. Now, as far as the book marathon, that started spontaneously. That happened in Los Angeles. I believe it was around 1970. And the devotees there were trying to please Prabhupada by distributing his books. And around Christmas time, they found that it was a really lucrative time to be out. And all of them stayed out. That is, all the devotees who went out to distribute books stayed out longer, thinking that I'll be the last one back. And as each one came back, they found out others stayed out longer than they did. And when finally they all came home on that day, by midnight, they were all together again, and they counted up how they did, and they recounted their stories. They realized that they were all experiencing the same kind of fire, that they wanted to do more. They wanted to stay longer. And that turned into, several days where everyone went all out. And then they gave the scores to Srila Prabhupada, who was simply amazed. It was a quantum leap and a breakthrough for ISKCON. So that kind of became institutionalized after that. Not in a bad way. I'm just saying it started spontaneously, and everyone, sometimes when something happens, a breakthrough, then it sticks, right? And that
Right.
happened in ISKCON.
Right. So you're saying like that Srila Prabhupada, like I remember hearing stories of Srila Prabhupada saying, like reading the scores and feeling like he was saying like this is giving me life to see all these books going out. So then I guess like devotees, really picked up on that. His disciples picked up on that and wanted to continue to please him in that way and continue doing that book distribution. So even after his departure, these marathons were still going on, right?
Yes, Namras Prabhu. In
Yeah.
fact, the newsletter started off in the mid 70s. A devotee named Shrutadev Prabhu had this idea. He said, "Well, why don't we measure what we're doing? There's a concept, and maybe we can do better." It was really a
Wow.
smart idea.
Right.
And so he started this newsletter, and there were dozens of communities around the world that were distributing books at the time, but only a couple of them were reporting.
Mm-hmm.
But then after a few tries, sending the newsletter to Prabhupada and then asking Brahmananda to hand it to him, make sure he saw it, then Prabhupada noticed it, and he wrote personal letters to Shrutadev and then to the whole society saying, I want everyone to I'm reading these, and I want everyone to to report.
Wow.
And they did.
Wow. My question for you now is our culture now is very much like a visual culture. And people respond more to like media in the sense of videos and things like that. And so do people actually like what is the how do people relate with books today? Like, do you take that into account when you're like kind of enthusing people to go out and distribute books and go on the marathon?
Well, in general, Namras Prabhu, human beings have a love affair with books. It's been there since the time immemorial. I write about this in my book called Our Family Business. I give a little history of the book. Humans have been trying to write on surfaces. They wrote on rocks, they wrote on shells. Then when somebody invented paper, they wrote on paper, and then they bound it together. And humans have not given up on books. This is an empiric fact. It's something that has been studied carefully and is studied regularly because it's a huge industry. There are demographics, sections of people who prefer other media, that is, and they relate to certain things. But yes, I talk a lot about in general how people can relate to books. We also offer ebooks, and especially during this pandemic when we've been locked down, we found out innovative ways to offer people books electronically. But they have not, in the industry in general, that is ebooks, replaced paper books, nor have people really lost their love for the book. There's something about it, isn't that aesthetically, when you hold a book in your hand, that you can't replace.
Yeah,
I mean,
for
you
sure.
just like, people carry them around and cherish them.
Yeah. How did the technique of book distribution develop in the sense of first, Srila Prabhupada said to go to distribute these books, but how did it become where you were, from the giving out one book, it turned into like a stack of books, and then it was like, and it's still evolving, I'm sure, and then there's different ways of doing it, like you put out that smart box, and tell us a little bit about the different ways how it evolved.
Sure. Well, Prabhupada's the first book distributor. Everyone who's read the Lilamrita or my book, Our Family Business, knows that Prabhupada started off the book distribution movement, and he set the example. He printed the books, he bought the paper, he put the paper on a rickshaw, and he walked next to it so he could save. And he went to the printers, he printed it, he took it out, he went store to store, he went neighborhood to neighborhood and offered his books. And when I was researching my book, I found that Prabhupada went all the way up into Kashmir and went to universities. In fact, there were Muslim universities that already had Prabhupada's Bhagavatams.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He sold Bhagavatams to the Library of Congress in Delhi. And you and your listeners may or may not know this, but the first, before Prabhupada came to America, his Bhagavatams came here first. That's
Wow.
because the Library of Congress dispatched several sets of his books. He sold 16 sets to the Library of Congress in Delhi, and then they sold to New York Public Library. And
Wow.
when Prabhupada got there, they were already in the library. Ramananda
Wow.
told me that Prabhupada used to take 3 bus transfers to get up to the library to visit his books in the library.
Wow.
When he was alone, and he said Prabhupada did that for entertainment.
Amazing. Amazing.
But I really didn't answer your question. I mean, starting there,
Sure.
Prabhupada sort of set an example that wherever you go, take books. So where was he going? America. So what did he bring? Books. What else? Nothing really. And he started off going around, and he would make samosas, and he would take books to bookshops. Like Orientalia already had books. Prabhupada did it himself alone by going shop to shop. And then, of course, with the book distribution movement, at first, there was great enthusiasm for selling Back to Godhead magazine for a quarter. And then there were several incidents where devotees broke through. And this is generally what happens, is there's some breakthrough. So Mahatma Das, the great internationally known devotee in our ISKCON society, he's been an innovator and a great book distributor since the old days. And he took a party in Canada, and they went out and tried, and somebody sold a book, Thakur Haridas, to a person on the street, and a big book, and everybody celebrated like it was the first time they ever saw it happen. And meanwhile, in San Francisco, that happened also. Just sort of spontaneously, it happened, and they said, "Wow, it can be done." And then others like Tripurari, Brahmachari, now Tripurari Maharaj, he was one of the great pioneers who just broke through and started selling, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 books in one day, big books. And these were shots heard around the world. They used to get passed around by telephone or by letter. And I can remember being in San Francisco when we heard that somebody in Los Angeles was selling 40 big books in a day. And we said, we don't believe it. It's impossible. It was like Roger Bannister, who broke the 4-minute mile. That story.
Right.
He had done it before him, and then after he did it, and everybody does it. Everyone in college does it now. So, things happen. Now, just the last part of this, so you can ask another question.
No. Please continue. Please.
Prabhupada in 1975, he told us several of the team members from our Sankirtan party visited Prabhupada and asked him about how to teach others how to distribute books. And Prabhupada said, just teach them to be sincere. And then he said, if you're sincere and they try, and he pointed with his hand like this, he said, then the master within the heart will show you how to do it. And he said, every devotee has his or her own genius, and it will come out when you just try.
Wow.
So, we've innovated over the years and there are thousands of ways that you can distribute books.
That kind of makes me think about some devotees. They think, do you think it's legitimate for someone to say, because I hear this all the time, that book distribution is not my thing. It's just not my thing. I'm a cook, or I like to raise children, or I'm into kirtan or something like that. Do they have to feel guilty about that? How would you respond to that?
No, I wouldn't feel guilty. Guilt is not a very productive emotion usually, but what we've tried to do over the last maybe 10, 15 years is introduce people to the joy of book distribution. I have a mantra. You want to try it?
Let's try it.
Book distribution.
Book distribution
is fun and easy.
It's fun and easy. So
when we started our book distribution here in Silicon Valley, we just had a handful of devotees. We started, in a tiny little house, and there were some grahastas and some babies, and we started in a simple way, and we said, how could all these people, devotees who are so busy, do a little book distribution? So we said, once a month, let's have a fun excursion where everybody goes out together. And we had such a good time. we said, we'll do this once a month. And everyone came back, said, let's do it once a week. It's so much fun. And I said, let's not. Let's just do it once a month. And then after a few months, they came back, said, this is hard. Let's do it every other month. I said, let's just do a month. And then, it got ingrained in our community and became part of what our community does. And so I've seen it in many other communities. One of the ways that we introduce what we call the monthly Sankirtan Festival, which is a way to start so nobody feels intimidated, is I do a seminar and I tell the devotees that, we're not going out to distribute books today. We're just going to go out and touch the pavement. That means we're going to the spot where, there's a potential for book but no book distributing. We're just touching the pavement together and we'll take a picture of it. And after that, anything you do is extra. And, no obligation, no performance necessary. I think one of the reasons that devotees feel hesitant is because they feel they have to perform. Yeah. And what's going to happen if somebody says no? Well, don't go out for that reason. Go out just to see what it feels like to go out into the great unknown, outside your comfort zone and see how you feel. And it's actually, surprises, it's an exhilarating experience.
Why is it important to come out of your comfort zone when it comes to like something like book distribution?
Well, all growth happens outside your comfort zone. When you go a little, like if you're learning a musical instrument, you have to push yourself a little bit, because every one of the human organs, this is scientifically proven, when it's not in a peak experience, it goes in sleep mode, just like your computer does. It goes to sleep. As I guess, preserve energy. Our brains go down, everything, all the organs. And so, that's our tendency to turn off. So to make progress, we do have to have some parameters to sort of challenge ourselves. Book distribution just happens to be, number one, it's a transcendental activity. I mean, Prabhupada did it. Our acharyas did it. And it's very quantifiable. You can quantify so many things about book distribution, and therefore you can measure it. And it's something where you can create a challenge for yourself that's really easy to count and therefore making incremental improvements on.
So you started this monthly Sankirtan festival, and then devotees. So this was in California, and devotees love to go out. And it's still going on there, monthly?
Yeah. In fact, we started, just with such small goals. And I can remember, Namras Prabhu, when I first, we started to get some momentum, and I said, let's set a goal now. Because the first goal was just to go out together. And the second goal was, let's go to 2 places rather than 1. We split our 6 devotees to go in different directions.
Right.
And gradually over the years, through the monthly Sankirtan festival, now we have something like 450 devotees that go out. We give over $500,000 a year to the BBT. Those are, receipts for book distribution. Wow. And it's this right now, if you look on the World Sankirtan newsletter, it's the top. It's the second temple in the world, just behind Delhi, in the cumulative scores for this year. And that's just from a bunch of babies. We got like 200 babies here, and they all go out with diapers on. We've even had a dog go on Sankirtan here named Yogi. Put a little backpack. Hansapriya put a backpack on Yogi. Beautiful Japanese dog. And she'd bring her along to the Harinam, and people would go, wow, what a nice dog. And what's the dog's name? Yogi. What are those books? Books on yoga. And I have one. Yeah. Yogi sold books. So the kids here totally rock. And one thing, I know you have a beautiful boy. And these kids, I've noticed, not just here, but in the UK and other places, who have grown up learning as Prabhupada put it, the art of book distribution, they get a kind of education that you don't get anywhere else. So I'll give you an example. When I first tried it, I took 5 5-year-olds out with me on book distribution, door to door.
Wow.
As we started going around together, I had some parental help also. and and I went to this first one of the doors we went to. I mean, the kids were wide-eyed, like, wow, this is amazing. You get to walk to people's houses. Talk about, Halloween. They like walking around mixing it up with people, but this is something else. And the first place, somebody was debilitated inside, physically or mentally, and it took them like 5 minutes to open the door. And we put the book in there for this woman, and somebody else tried to push it back, but the woman wouldn't let go of it. She wanted to hold on to it. Wow. And it was a physical struggle going on inside. It was kind of like symbolic of the forces of good and evil, Namras Prabhu.
Wow.
And then all of a sudden the door slammed and the kids all looked at each other and went, ah! They could tell, we just did something that was significant, and it touched my heart. And then we went to the next house. It was a nice spring day, and there was this woman outside, a suburban home with a white picket fence, as you might see in the movies.
Yeah.
And she was standing on her porch, and she saw me dressed in a dhoti, and she saw these kids and the books in my hands and in their hands. And I stood outside the gate. The kids by this time were already inspired to, approach people, and so they kind of burst through the gate, and she looked at me and she said, "Oh no, I'm not interested. I'm a Christian." And so by that time, it's too late. The kids, these 5-year-olds, had surrounded her, and they were showing her the books. They said, "This is Christian, a little cow. And this is the spiritual world." And she was so charmed. She looked up at me, and I'm standing, on the perimeter. She goes, "All right, how much is it?" And I said, "This is wonderful," and then Kameshwari, who heads up our kids Sankirtan program, there's about 200 kids go on Sankirtan here.
Wow.
And she told us about the first time they faced rejection, and she had the kids, and they went to a door, and the woman who opened the door was rude. It's very rare it happens, especially with kids, but nonetheless they were dejected, and they went and they sat down in a nearby playground, and they processed it. They talked about, so what just happened there? And what does it mean to us? How many people do you know, adults, Namras Prabhu, who know how to handle rejection? It's a hard thing, right?
It's hard, yeah.
But when you learn it as a kid on book distribution, you develop this maturity, how I deal with the world, how I process things, what to speak of, learning organization skills, learning how to communicate to people, seeing the conditions people live in. I mean, when you go out into the city, door to door, you get a kind of street smarts you don't get anywhere else. So book distribution is edifying, it's purifying, and it helps young people become really in tune with what's going on in the world. That's the real reason to go out on book distribution.
Wow, that's amazing. I've never heard that angle before. It's really, really cool. Tell us a little bit more about that. You said kids Sankirtan, about 200 kids?
Yeah, the kids rock.
How did you like, what does that mean? So they do the same thing like a monthly Sankirtan, but it's like all children?
Well, we have a monthly Sankirtan festival. Our festival started off, like once a month, and then it expanded. We still call them MSF, or Monthly Sankirtan Festival. Right. Generally, we aim for holiday times. So like we'll go, for instance, for Lord Nityananda's appearance day, and we'll have a drive all the way up till that. And then we all get together, the whole community, and we offer the results of what we've done as a team. We don't calculate individual scores. I got weary of that.
Interesting.
A long time ago. And I also had a realization about it, Namras Prabhu, and that is that when there's individual scores, the ones that don't feel like they can do as well as others, they tend to not want to show up. And if you just say all for one and one for all, it's all for the team, then everyone will do whatever they can put in. Wow. And I really think this is important, not just in every community, but for our whole globe. That's why right now we're really working on the global idea that we're one global team, and we're working together for this, for instance, 2 million Bhagavad Gita marathon. That's what's happening. Yeah.
That's what's happening right now.
It's happening right now. Yeah. We're inching towards our goal of distributing 2 million Bhagavad Gitas for this marathon.
So the marathon is like the whole of December.
That's right. Actually, it started in Kartik or a little before
Okay.
that, and we're going all the way to January 7th. Gives us enough time to distribute at least 2 million Bhagavad Gitas collectively as a global team.
That's amazing.
And
Do you know at what point you are at right now so
I
far?
do. I do.
Really?
Yeah. We're inching towards our goal. I can just tell you that I have great confidence
Wow.
in it.
That's
And,
amazing.
we're just coming off another success too, which was Bhadra Purnima.
Oh,
That
right.
was on September 2nd or 3rd. And that's the day upon which there's a full moon. And the Srimad Bhagavatam says, if you give away a set of Bhagavatams on that day, then you get the reward of going back to the supreme destination. So over the last few years, we've had a marathon of selling full sets of Bhagavatams leading up to that day. And last year, we were stalled on a plateau at about 7,000 the first 2 years. And then in Tirupati last year, I made a bold statement in front of the GBC and all the devotees during the GBC meeting. And I said, we will distribute at least 10,000 Srimad Bhagavatam sets for Bhadra Purnima in 2020. And then when the pandemic hit, we thought, wow, how are we going to do this? But guess what? We ended up doing 24,000 sets of Bhagavatams for Bhadra Purnima.
24,000. Wow.
See, we're not doing it. It's Lord Chaitanya. You make a goal and you pray to Lord Chaitanya and you work methodically and he makes it happen. And that's what our movement is. You take a risk for Lord Chaitanya, like an entrepreneurial risk. And then you watch as you go through the motions, you take the anxiety for it, but he makes it all happen.
I like that concept of a collective book score as opposed to an individual one, because in the past in book distribution, like people who lived in ashrams, like for me, I lived in the it was called the sanctuary at the time, at the Bhakti Center. I lived there for 2 years and I did 2 Christmas marathons and like 2 or 3 summer marathons. And to be brutally honest with you, Prabhu, I am a bit scarred by my experience, because it was a lot about how many books is Namras going to do, how much money are we going to Lakshmi points are we going to collect, and so there was this real emphasis on that kind of the points, and then that became my reality of it all the way up till today, about book distribution. So how would you change that impression that that deep samskar, I guess some people have, like me and like a number of other devotees who have been devotees for a while and who have done the whole book distribution thing? How would you change that impression?
Well, first you got to do the mantra.
Book distribution
is fun and
easy.
See? Don't you feel better now? Yeah.
I do a little bit.
I do find some people, and in fact, some, my old god brothers and god sisters, from time to time say, they'll say, great, keep going. It's like, and then, but I don't want to go out. I remember this and that. And one thing is, sometimes, have you ever had the experience, like, you're thinking about reading Bhagavad Gita, but your mind says, you're like, God, that's, boring. Why don't you look at Facebook instead, or Instagram, or whatever people look at nowadays. And so, but then somehow or other, you sit down because your kid says, like, come on, Daddy, let's read Bhagavad Gita. So you sit down, it's like, all right. And you start reading and go, what was I thinking? This is the nectar. I never want to see Facebook again, And I think that it's easy to psych oneself out. I mean, it's an ocean out there. A lot of times at the Bhakti Center, when I stayed there recently in the last 5 years, when I'm waiting for an Uber or something, when I step outside the door, I just start meeting people on the street. And God, it's so nice. People, they're kind of like just floating around waiting for us. I mean, Prabhupada said, this was his vision. When he was in Vrindavan, he wrote this poem called Vrindavani Bhajan. And in it, he says, the people are in their homes and they're looking down the road, wondering, when are Nitai and Gaur going to come and save me? And then, when we actually walk out into that ocean and start distributing, we go like, God, what was I thinking? It's so nice. So
Hmm.
I do recommend there are some parameters to help everyone get over scars or to get over fear to do it. And one of them is the party. It's a Sankirtan party. So when we go out together, like in Toronto, uh, Bhakti Marg Swami invited me up there 11 years ago and said, there's tons of young people here. They haven't really been able to embrace the joy of Sankirtan or book distribution. We missed a generation somewhere. Why don't you come up and we'll talk about it? And, I came and met the most wonderful, intelligent young people I've ever met. And, we made it fun. We all went out together. We all pitched in. There was no individual kind of performance necessary. And we did what we could together. And then after a day of organized book distribution, means we go to places where, we have already permission to be there. We'll put up a nice table with a display. The first day I was in Toronto, some, really aristocratic woman walked up to me and said, where have you been all my life? I want to, I want to do this, and ended up coming to the temple the next day. And the devotees, the young people there were in ecstasy, and they were all together. And some of the ways that we also make it fun is after a couple hours, 2-3 hours together out doing Harinam and book distribution, we'll come back, have really nice prasadam, and we sit in a circle and we all share the experiences we had. And so many people, they'll say, I didn't want to go out. I wasn't sure what was going to happen. And now my life has changed. It's so together, it's better. And that can be done. It's very difficult to go out by yourself, or just go out and without that mood of working for a team. So there are ways to make it appealing and to overcome the scars of the past, if you have any, from book to
Yeah. That's that whole model of all going out together is ingenious, because then the stress is not put out on anyone. It's basically you do it as a team, and you're having fun together and you're doing it. But that requires someone to organize that, and I think that's a great idea. I think I would totally be into that. That's great. Another question I had was, like, all these books are going out, like you said, 2 million, like you're going to do 2 million Bhagavad Gitas. We're almost to that goal. Like, do you ever think about, okay, maybe no one will read that, or a small amount of people will actually read the books, and they might just throw it away in this kind of disposable culture that we live in. Everything's disposable. So, it's just a book, and to throw it away. So, and I know people say, devotees say, it's a time bomb, but like, how many of these time bombs are actually going to go off is my question to you.
Well, it depends on your perspective, really. If you read 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, for instance, on the power of the holy name, it always goes off. And it is a time bomb. You don't know when the effect is going to be there, but it's always there. Bhagavatam says, a person believes in fire, doesn't believe in fire, they're still going to get burned. And I know some people, push back against this. No, Agyata Sikriti, don't preach that and things like that. But how can I help it? It's right there in the Bhagavatam. We don't. I wrote 2 chapters side by side in my book. One is called The Penny Principle, which is about how much benefit someone gets just from giving a penny, and how it always expands. Like King Satyavrata, he was there at the river doing some oblations, and then the little fish came to him and said, "Hey, help me. I'm in your kingdom. I'm going to get eaten in here. Why don't you do something for me?" So he said, "I'll help you." He just picked up this little minnow, not knowing it was the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada writes there that he got the Sagyata Sukriti. So lots of people meet devotees, whether they take books or don't take books. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta told his Dambas, not Dambasis, his ashramites, those who are living in the ashram, he said, go out every day and at least knock 3 doors. Somebody came to my door, and they'll think, I should be, I'll tell you one story. When I was we were in San Diego. We were going with a team of devotees to different shops, which is ecstatic. And we came to this bar, and we go inside the bars, actually. And
Wow.
if you haven't done that ever or recently, it's ecstatic walking in with Gitas, because what are they doing in a bar? Really nothing. They're just vegging out. So when we got there was about 4 of us about to walk in, and there was a guy taking a breather, and he was leaning against the doorway outside, and he saw us coming up. I was in a dhoti, carrying books, other devotees with me, and he just pulled out his wallet. I didn't even say anything. He gave me $20. And I turned to one of the devotees when we got in. I said, "Why did you do that?" And he said he felt guilty. Prabhu, the books, they are. We should do everything we can to always have a next thing, to connect people. It's important, but it is a fact that the books have a potency, and they always end up somewhere. And I can say that for myself. I got my first book from a high school friend, Richie Corsa. He brought me a Back to Godhead magazine.
Wow.
And he what he told me when he gave it to me, he said, this Hare Krishna took my last 50 cents on Telegraph Avenue in Berkeley. And, he gave me this magazine, bunch of bold people. He said, I'm not into this at all, but I know you are, Willie. So here you go. He gave me the magazine. And, Prabhupada writes about this. He said, the book you sell might not be for you, it would be for somebody else.
Right.
Let me say one more thing about this. This is an important point you brought up. This is a doubt sometimes people have.
Yeah.
May I share my screen for a second?
Yeah, please.
Okay. So
It's just coming through still. Here we go. Okay. Let me make it full screen. They can still hear you.
Can you see this?
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. So first of all, we're in a sampradaya. And what does it mean? A sampradaya means to give the best gift, the most complete gift. And Advaitacharya and his methodology was to pray hard for Lord Chaitanya to appear, and he did. And his program was chant Hare Krishna, teach it to others.
Right.
And there's a marketplace, he said. We should spread it all over the world to every town and village. So, we have this legacy. Bhaktivinoda Thakur praying also for a ray of Vishnu, and Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati telling our Srila Prabhupada, if you ever get money, print books, and Prabhupada bringing them forth and spreading the marketplace all over the world. I know I'm rushing through these, but
please don't rush through them. Please, okay. You take your time.
Look at Prabhupada's first flyer for selling the Bhagavatams. He had 3 volumes at the time, but it says here 60 volumes of elaborate English version.
Wow.
And it also says on this flyer, all over the world for scientific knowledge of God. He had no resources, no money, but his vision was big, spread it all over the world, right? And Lord Chaitanya wanted everyone in the world to be inundated with love of God. And Prabhupada said, by printing books, we can actually inject our movement into the masses of people all over the world. And then he equated this idea of distributing books with Lord Chaitanya's plan of inundation. So there's a parallel there. Now, I just want you to look at this, Namras Prabhu, and
sure.
You can help out by giving some answers, okay?
Sure.
What's anachronistic about this picture, would you say?
What's what?
What seems to be out of place according to the time this picture was taken?
There's a book in Lord Brahma's hand.
Yeah, and Rabindra Sarup Prabhu, who wrote the foreword to my book, Our Family Business, told me that in his research, he found that we are called the Sampradaya of the book. And that's why you'll find Lord Brahma holding a book. See pictures of him. Who's this, Namras?
Vyasadeva.
And what's he sitting there writing?
Srimad Bhagavatam.
Yeah, just say a book.
A book, yes.
And who's this?
Madhvacharya.
What's he holding in his hand?
A book.
Correct. Who's this?
Sri Rupa Goswami.
What's he kneeling before?
A book.
Correct. Who's this?
Sanatana Goswami.
What's he sitting there writing?
A book.
Correct. Who are these?
6 Goswamis.
And what are they holding in their hands?
Books.
Correct. Who's this?
Bhaktivinoda Thakur.
By the way, what's he posing with?
Books.
There's a
Wow.
pattern developing.
Yes, I see it. I see it. Wow.
Who's that?
Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur.
Oh my God, what's he posing with?
Lots of books behind him.
Correct. All right. Here's our founder Acharya, Srila Prabhupada. What's he posing with?
Books.
Any pattern?
Yes.
Sampradaya, the book. So if we look into books in general, and this is what I wanted to get to.
Sure.
Books, here's books that changed the world. Common Sense was a book Thomas Paine wrote. It's still the best-selling book of all time in world history per capita. Almost everybody in the colonies bought a copy of his book. And according to historians, that's what sparked the American Revolution. Are books effective when they go out in mass quantity? Yes. Origin of the Species. Do you have this at home, Namras?
No, I don't.
Do you have it in your car? Do you have it? Have you ever read it?
Yes, I have.
Okay. In usually large assemblies of people, when I ask who's read it, it's only those who have pursued a certain line of education.
Right. I have a history degree, so
There you go.
Yeah.
Engineers haven't read it, but I ask everyone, have you ever heard of the theory of evolution?
Right.
Everybody says yes. Why? It came from a book. So books started handwritten. This is a sample of a handwritten book. There's a stylus you put on the palm leaf, and then you have to put it in the sun, and then it makes those impressions. Wow. Then came the printing press. That was first to print Bibles, and there's a marked increase in Christianity all over the world when Bibles started going out. What speak of Martin Luther, he had papers that were printed, and Lutheranism got spread, right. Protestantism. And then this is a picture of the first printing press. This is the same brand that's from Cleveland, Ohio, that Srila Bhaktisiddhanta shipped to Calcutta to print his books. There were several of them in the mutt. So here's the theory or the practicality of it all. Books are containers. What do they have? Idea seeds. And human beings, what category of energy are we? The spiritual side, Namras Prabhu.
What category?
We're Tatastha Shakti, right?
Right. Tatastha Shakti, yep. Marginal.
I like to say we're open to suggestion.
Right.
We go either way, right? So when human beings hear something, especially when they read it in a book, it plants a seed in their heart. That's why people have heard of evolution. That's why there's, economic systems based on books. So there's a very practical element to this that I'm going to stop sharing here in a second.
Oh, you're going to stop? You want to stop sharing?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to come back to you.
Sure.
There. I didn't do that on purpose. Can you see me?
I can see you, yeah.
Okay. Only problem is I can't see you.
Oh, you can't see me?
Well, somehow my screen, it's magnified. So just suddenly did. Anyway, it's better if I can just see you because I'm tired of looking at myself. So anyway, the books, when they go out into society, it's not a sentimental thing. And it's actually a strategy that Prabhupada mentioned to us many times of how religious movements, economic movements, sociological studies show that, these ideas come from somewhere and the books are highly respected, then they actually make a difference in the world.
That's wonderful. Yeah. I mean, I didn't know all those things. I mean, making that visual of like our different acharyas and then the books with them, that's very powerful. Like, I think, we kind of forget that how did all this come about is because of books. Yeah.
That's what our foundation is, really. What would we be without the book, really, as a movement, And in my research, there was a great scholar who, at the time, he was the preeminent academic scholar of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, named Joseph T. O'Connell. You'll see some of his writings in the Bhagavatamrita. He wrote the foreword for Gopi Pranadhana's translation of that.
Oh, really? Wow.
And he was very, he knew Gaudiya Vaishnavism history very carefully. He wrote an essay called Institutionalizing Prema.
Wow.
And in it, he talks about how there's two institutions. One is he calls the soft institution, the other one, the hard institution. So the hard institution is what we see, the GBC, the buildings, the chain of command, keep things going, treasurer, temple president. And then we have the soft institution, he says, are the books. And he said the soft institution is more adept, or more effective rather, at spreading the culture of Krishna consciousness all over the world. He said through the soft institution, Gaudiya literatures, we're able to transport the culture, which means culture means what's real, right, and valuable to a particular community. He said you can spread it across time and geography through the books. And so Prabhupada said, even if the Krishna consciousness movement were somehow or other, the hard institution were to falter somehow, he said you can restart the movement because of the soft institution. So obviously two complement one another, but the soft institution is not to be overlooked. Otherwise, what you get is a really boring situation where you're just managing for no reason. We have to have a missionary spirit. We have to be going somewhere and saying, this is what we're doing. That's the thrust behind it all.
Right. Wow. I like that concept, the soft institution and the hard institution. That's it's a lot about relationships that people develop. Like you were talking about following up and connecting people after you distribute them a book. Can you speak a little bit about that? About how do you do that? Like if you're okay, we're distributing all these thousands of books, but then following up and building that relationship, that repertoire.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, realize that for somebody who's open, the book does a lot of follow-up itself. So it's a very loving way to introduce somebody to Krishna consciousness, to anything for that matter, is just give them the book on it. Like there are even sayings inside. He's the guy who wrote the book on it. It's like, where's the book on this thing?
Right.
As I said in the beginning, books are beloved in human society. We depend on them. We have that chit shakti. We want knowledge. We want to put our head in a book and find out something about ourselves. Right. So how to follow up is, well, as an example, if you take the time to plan it out, what is the likely trajectory of somebody who comes in contact, as an example, with a book and is interested in it? You have to chart out on paper a pathway so that they can make step-by-step progress to be connected. And if you do that, you'll get something like, for instance, again, use an example close to home at ISV. One of our devotees, Jai Madhava Prabhu, has spent a lot of time doing digital transformation over the last 4 years. And he's come up with a concept called Bhakti Community. And there we have, and this was ideal timing for the pandemic, there we have a whole community with classes and seminars and everything where you sign in and you become part of the community. You can pay a donation to get in, so you feel that you've qualified somehow. And then you can be part of the whole process. And so that's one example. Let's say somebody gets a book and then you also give them the information that goes with it and says, here's how to get into the practice, and here's how to find out and ask more questions. So one of the mantras that we have is always have a next thing to offer. So every class you give, every broadcast you do, always have something where you say, and the next thing is this.
Oh, okay.
So when you give them a book, make sure to say, like, okay, here's the next thing. And you can be proactive too. If you find somebody that's obviously open and eager, you can get their information and, say, I'll get in contact with you.
There's a few questions on the comment section that I'd like to show here. Here's one from Satish Kalyan. This is Satish Prabhu, is a friend of mine. Prabhu, what is your suggestion for online book campaigns, and how successful are you with it?
Satish, I'm glad you asked me that. As if we paid him to say that. You'll be happy to hear that we meaning devotees collectively all over the world, innovated during the pandemic, and we've so far in the marathons that we usually have during the year, we've tripled what we usually do. So
Really?
how did we do that? Well, the first time it came up was our first marathon of the year is called the Bhaktivinoda Thakur Marathon for his disappearance day, which is in June. And
Wow.
so we always start around April, and then we really start ramping it up. And of course, we were all locked down. There was shelter in place. We couldn't even go out. So what did we do? We started calling parties online. What's a calling party? So let's say you get on a Zoom. Satish has been in a Zoom room, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we live in there, right? So what we did, we'd all meet in a Zoom room, and then we have lists of contacts, people to call, and so you could see all the devotees in the Zoom room with phones. We'd have everybody on mute, and then over in the chat box, we put links to Google Docs that have scripts, and also how to pay through PayPal, Venmo, and all that. And you know what we found out? It's much easier. You don't have to go out, get in a car, put on your safety belt, drive to the place, pull out a box. You just call them on the phone. And did people take? Some people did. A lot of people did. We sold, more than 1,000 sets of Bhagavatams. We sold tens of thousands of books over the phone. And some devotees innovated and did it on the internet. So we do have courses on that, Satish. Devotees even now, right now, are doing it, and very successfully. And it's not situational that we're going to give it up after the pandemic, if that ever happens. It's a new pipeline, and it's really big.
That's amazing. So this pandemic has been like a blessing in some ways for the devotees who are doing book distribution, because it's kind of you've innovated now.
Yeah, that was our mantra at the very beginning. We said, never waste a good crisis. And so we said, we're going to excel in the pandemic. We're going to innovate a way. And it's, Prabhu, it's been huge for the whole world. Wow. We're connecting with continents. We're on with Russia. We're on with India. We're on with South America. We're on with the Middle East. We're having multiple calls every week, connecting with hundreds, thousands of book distributors. And every day I get communities from different parts of the world, Croatia, Serbia, calling up. It's like, hey, we want in on this, count us as part of the global team.
Wow. Amazing. That's great. Let's see another question here. Okay, this is from Ram Govinda Das. Sometimes book distribution gets a bad rep. Reasons may be book distribution as a means to make a living, personal finances, or illegitimate ways of distributing or lying, etc. Can you speak on these topics?
Well, it's a form of a sadhana, going out for book distribution. So just like if you chant japa and you're very inconsistent, or let's just say more parallel with what the question is. Let's say if you chant japa every day, but you look at your phone while you're chanting,
right,
and you're disrespectful to the holy name. How many people do you know keep chanting when they do that? I mean, I don't know if you know any, but the fact is that if you chant like that, distracted rounds, you won't keep chanting. You won't get a taste. You won't do it. So book distribution is a kind of sadhana. It's a heart-to-heart exchange of sharing Krishna consciousness with souls who are walking around in a body, and the super souls there watching the whole thing. And if you get condescending, you start thinking I'm better than other people. Opposite of what Krishna says to do in the Bhagavad Gita. Right. He said, be a kind friend to everybody. Don't think yourself better, be meek and humble and all these type of things. This is the time to practice them. And so we go out to practice it. But if somebody goes out and is rude to people, does it with a fruitive, motivation, right, what happens? They won't be able to continue doing it. So, really, we don't think of it as, it's not a business. It's a sadhana. It's a very high sadhana to go out and meet people where they live, and where they work, and who weren't expecting anything, any gift, and they get it. And so sometimes people say, well, what about asking for money in return? Well, the only reason that, let me just tell you what I tell people on the street. Like if I was in front of the Bhakti Center and I gave someone a book, explain it to them, I showing it to them, and I say, we don't sell it like in a bookstore. We only ask for donation. We don't need the money. The only reason we ask for anything is because it's an ancient tradition. When you give something in return for spiritual knowledge, it connects you with the previous teachers, and it allows you to enter deeply within the knowledge. It's a principle called dakshina. And halfway through that, people just stop, put down their back. Absolutely.
Wow.
The other way, like we're helping kids in Biafra or something like that, some nonsense. The person, the devotee who's trying to distribute is cheating himself. You cheat yourself of the opportunity to be straightforward and just tell people what's in the book and watch the magic. That's the beauty of Sankirtan. You get to go out and just meet souls and be really honest and sincere with them. And that's where the nectar is, and that's where the practice and the purification comes.
When you said like it's like a sadhana, it reminded me of I think it was in one book I read about book distribution. Like it's like in the mood of the gopis.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that, please?
Sure. It's in my book, in our family business, and I wrote a section about that, about the Raganuga Bhakti. You'll find on Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's his trademark, for the Gaudiya Math. He has an emblem there, and on it he has a picture of the printing press, the logo. That's what I was looking for. Sorry. Right. On the logo, one of the items that's there is a printing press, and above it he put Rag Marg. So this is a very high thing, Wow. So in the 70s, one of the great leaders of the book distribution movement was Rameshwara Prabhu.
Right.
And I mean, he was and is one of the most enthusiastic people for book distribution and Krishna consciousness that I've ever met. And by far, he was one of the leaders of the world for book distribution in the early days. And so he was teaching in classes about how book distribution is in the mood of the gopis. And why? Because the gopis really are concerned with bringing others closer to Krishna and engaging them in service. And so it sounds very esoteric and rasika. And so some devotees, Nandulal Dasi, she wrote to Prabhupada. We had the letter that she wrote him saying, Rameshwar is saying this, and she paraphrased, what he's saying. And said, at the time, some devotees were thinking, oh, come on now. What kind of sales motivation talk is this? And then Prabhupada wrote back a few sentences. It's there in my book. He says, yes, this point that he makes about how this was Lord Chaitanya's movement in the mood of the gopis to go out and for book distribution. This is correct. So, it's an esoteric kind of a practice. Jiva Goswami says, if you're practicing Krishna consciousness, but you're not distributing it to others, it's as if you're offering ghee onto ashes instead of into the sacrificial fire.
Wow.
Because that's the principle that we work on, is that it should be distributed to others, right? And that's the nectar of our movement, Namras. I mean, let me just put it to you like this. I mean, people have heard me speak on this, probably, heard this a million times, but there's rice. It's a good food. It's a world's staple. There's dal. It's a really good food. I love it. But when you put rice and dal together, you get synergy, 42% more nutrition. Namras, Prabhu.
Wow.
That's in Jamuna's cookbook. It's Shastra. So when you have hearing and chanting, and you also have some time, at least once a month, go out for 5 minutes and, try to meet somebody. You put those two things together, you get super sadhana.
Wow.
It's oxygen. That's the oxygen of our movement.
That's amazing. I love that. I love that concept of that that it's like connecting people with Krishna, like the gopis wanted to connect others with Krishna's service, not that they wanted to just be with him themselves. Let's take another question here. This is from Mridanga Drum. We got some interesting names here. When we measure how many books we've distributed, measure how many rounds we've chanted, or measure how many years in Krishna consciousness we've been in, we may equate this with measuring our bhakti. I guess, how do you feel about that, or what would you say about that, is the question?
Yeah, Madunga Drum Prabhu. This is a principle of bhakti practice. It sounds counterintuitive, like why are you counting everything? But it's actually a principle that goes back. Srinivasacharya writes about this in the Shad Goswami Ashtakam. He says, Sankhya Purvaka Nama Gananati bi Kalavasani Krita. So Sankhya Purvaka means they counted everything. How many times they bowed down, how many rounds they chanted. I mean, how do you feel when you see somebody with a bead bag that doesn't have any counter beads on it? Yeah, right. we know you're just moving your finger back and forth. But we count how many rounds we do because the mind is so crafty that if you don't count it, your mind, I think I did 16, or it doesn't matter today. I'll make up for it tomorrow. And you could skip a week, a month, a year, a lifetime. So we don't trust the mind. It's like a wild animal. It can come out anytime and just devour us. So the bhakti yogis, those who are in Vaidhi Bhakti, they count everything. And the Goswamis weren't in Vaidhi Bhakti, but they set the example for everybody. Right. So what Prabhupada calls it is, he says, Sankhya Purvaka means numerical strength. And if anybody's ever tried to do something like, let's say, lose weight, you say you got to take 20 pounds. Unless you start measuring, you're not going to take the weight off. You got to count, like, okay, wait, not another scoop of quinoa. It's got a lot of fat in it. It's like this is how much. You have to calculate. What gets measured gets done. And if you don't measure it, then you're not going to get that to that spontaneous level, where you're doing enough so you get a taste where you want to do it. That's why it's important. And counting books, it's the same principle. There's no number that's high enough. Like right now, we're doing 2 million books. I was just talking to a gentleman this morning. He wants to help do 1 billion books. Wow. And that's fine too. And we will do that. But the fact is that that's not enough. So birds fly in the sky as high as they're able, and the sky is unlimited. So we can always add more zero, but we do it for what it makes of us to hit the goal. I'll give you an example. NASA. They go to a lot of trouble to put a rocket up. It is actually rocket science. And they do actually have to be careful about, the width of the O-ring and is there any grit in it, because it'll blow up. So they have to have impeccable management and organization to get these rockets to go up and actually work. So do you know that all modern management that's taught in the best universities comes from NASA? The management systems, they were invented in NASA under the pressure of the deadline of getting a rocket into space. So wow. What I like to say is the reason that we set goals in book distribution, like these big marathons, is what it makes of our communities to achieve them. For instance, right now, it's caught people's imagination all over the world, Namras Prabhu. As I said, people are calling me every day now, say, I want in on this. How can I contribute? A godbrother called me today and gave me $1,000. He just said, I heard you're doing 2 million books. I want to be part of it. I'm going to send you $1,000. I got calls the last few days. Everyone wants to go for it. And how do we do it? We have to use all our skills and we have to find where the gaps are. Otherwise, how are we going to get to 4 and 5 million next year, which we have to do? Prabhupada said, the purpose, he writes this in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, the purpose of the Krishna consciousness movement is to go on preaching unlimitedly. So what does that mean? We got to get better, right? We can't stand a plateau, or otherwise it's totally boring. And the movement isn't even worth it at that point. You just start thinking like it's a bunch of problems. Everyone's got a different idea about, how things are supposed to be and what you're supposed to say and not say. Unless you have a missionary spirit and you're going for that goal, Madanga Prabhu, then you don't have that combustion, that fire that everyone's looking for, the mission, that we're going to do something good for people. Sampradaya, give the gift.
It's amazing. Wow. Amazing answer. I love that. I love that concept of that community. You need to like something that comes out of going towards that goal is what is like the process to get there was that you had to, rack your brain. You had to meet with other devotees. You had to, get everyone else together and have a community spirit. And that in itself is like the amazing part of it.
Yeah. The journey's the reward.
Right.
And the goal, so what? You made the goal. Good. We celebrate. But have you ever, like in American football, there's this thing called the NFL.
Right.
I used to see it in the old days. So, what happens is the team wins I'm sure it happens in every sport. The team wins a championship. In America, it's called the Super Bowl. So then the reporters are on the field and they come up to the MVP, the most valuable player, and they say, what's the first thing they tell him, Namras?
What are you going to do next or something like that?
Can you do it again next year? Guy just won. Give him a break for 5 seconds, He's like, can you do it again next year? Are you still going to be here? And it's like, I don't know, and it's the same way with these goals. As soon as we finish Bhadra Purnima, it's like, hey, that's behind us. The second, all the numbers were in, we were finished, we were going towards this 25th of December is Gita Jayanti. We've branded it this year as a World Gita Day and 2 million Gitas. So we had to start looking at that. And that means I don't have time for messing around, and meanwhile, I'm growing old. And meanwhile, I'm still on the field somehow by Krishna's arrangement. And, the goal is to run out the clock on the field instead of getting distracted. There's too many things, I could have been distracted by the election or by, this and that and the other thing. I don't have time. So it's Krishna's mercy for the whole community. Yes.
I really admire that you're not distracted by anything else because you're so ambitious in this like spiritual ambition of meeting these goals. Like that's so admirable. And it's like something that I would like, because I feel like I'm so distracted by so many other things. Like you said, the election or like little kind of trivial things that devotees can get like distracted by, but a way to kind of focus yourself is to make these goals of book distribution. And I think that's brilliant. And I think that's something we can all strive to do, because you're not happy when you're distracted or when you're like kind of like half in and half out. You want to like go all in, because that's where the nectar is a cliched thing. That's where the nectar is.
Exactly. That's the point. That's what our movement is. It's that real, that feeling that we're going somewhere. Otherwise, why do you call it a movement? What puts the move in movement? You got to be going somewhere.
Yes. Another question. This is from Ashwin. I've noticed in the last few years that devotees in North America are trying to distribute books, especially Srimad Bhagavatam sets, by playing on Indian nationalist sentiments rather than emphasizing the spiritual message. Would love to get His Grace Vaisesika Maharaj's perspective on this.
I don't know about that. Ashwin Prabhu, if you can give me some specifics. None of our people do that, that I know of. I don't know everybody in the world and what they're saying, but playing on national sentiments with the Bhagavatam. I mean, you could play on any sentiment with the Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam has everything in it. It's one of the reasons it's such an important book. Okay. But I would just say in general, because I don't want to, be glib in answering him. It's an important question he asks, actually. Sure. And that is, Prabhupada said, sell the books on their own merit. He said, you can sell them on their own merit. And I think that's better. For the most part, try to translate what the books are saying into a language and give people a context so that they can appreciate it. But don't go too far off into weird stuff, and just for a gimmick. And the reason, again, partly, and I would say foremost, is you cheat yourself. If you're straightforward and sincere in presenting the book, then what you get is you're going to find a lot of sincere people. And, partly I feel it's Lord Chaitanya sends them to you because he said, okay, I got a bunch of sincere people here. Here's who I'm sending them to. Is this person who's being straightforward,
Right.
By the same token, if somebody's giving some nationalistic thing, it's like those are the people they're going to attract, perhaps,
Right.
At the same time, I don't know what people are saying about nationalistic policies or whatever in the Bhagavatam. I can't imagine how the two go together, except for maybe, look at people are being converted in India, and we should spread our culture. That's not so bad. I guess everyone presents according to their own level of understanding. But honestly, Ashvin Prabhu, I'd be really interested if you'd send me a letter, and I'll look into it more carefully. I always preach, number one, our topmost priority is to leave everyone with a good impression. Take a book, don't take a book. If they look cross-eyed at you, follow what Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. Be humble. Don't condescend to people. Don't think that you're God's gift to the world. Go out there with humility like the great acharyas do. And, that's the chance to practice it. Right. And here's something you're going to like, Namrats Prabhu. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta told his followers about book distribution and going out to preach in general, which, is taking a risk, because it's a risk to your ego. It's like, what if somebody says no? Practically, they barely ever do. But when they do, he said, when people refuse you, or they argue against you, or they ignore you, he said, that gives you spiritual blood for your spiritual body. You get chid rakta, spiritual blood, for your chid sharira. So think of it as you're taking that austerity, that you're actually, building your spiritual body, so to speak, metaphorically.
Amazing. There's a question. I know you spoke about World Gita Day. Can you explain how one can participate in that?
Yeah. Okay. World Gita Day is Gita Jayanti. So Gita Jayanti is one of the most important days where we can present Bhagavad Gita on a world stage. And so one of the ways you can do it is by getting our information kits, which I'll give you the links for.
Sure, you can give me the link and I can post it in the comments.
Okay. And when you do that, let's see, here I got my World Gita Day, also on Facebook. I'm just grabbing the links right here.
Sure.
Where's the chat box on this thing?
If you go to the right, there's the private chat.
Okay.
And then you can send it to me and I'll post it in the comments.
Oh, I think I just put it up there.
Yep, I see it. I'll
everybody. So I'm glad it wasn't anything secret. Yeah, you can get involved with your local community. Most temples are doing something for World Gita Day. You can also contact us at those links, and you can tell other people about it. You can distribute Bhagavad Gitas before World Gita Day. We also are doing a worldwide international presentation on Zoom, starting in New Zealand, going through Japan, then it's coming through every time zone in the world, be a 24-hour presentation glorifying the Bhagavad Gita. There's a creative contest during that time for videos, artwork, musical expressions, or just talks to show appreciation for the Bhagavad Gita. And it will be viewed all over the world, culminating in a Mahafire Yagya with social distancing at Kurukshetra.
Wow. Amazing.
So if you want to participate in that, give us a ring. If you want to distribute Bhagavad Gitas, let us know. If you know somebody who wants to donate to have Bhagavad Gitas placed, we're showering the world. As we speak right now, Namras, there's millions. That's when we get to the billion. There's thousands of Gitas going out today, right now, being shipped everywhere, all over the world, because we're going to hit this 2 million mark. I guarantee you.
Wow.
It's the work of everybody together in the world. So be part of it. Get in on it somehow, even if it's
I posted the link in the comments, so if you're interested, please check that out.
Yeah.
Another question from Mark Kelly. In the early days of learning book distribution, I found certain books harder to distribute. Do you recommend or have more success with a particular book, especially for people that have no prior knowledge of Krishna consciousness? Great question.
Oh yeah. Hey, Mark, thanks a lot. I've always liked to say that the best book for a book distributor to distribute is the one that he or she likes the best, because you're going to have more enthusiasm.
Right.
When I read the Sri Upanishad when I first joined the temple, actually I got it before, but I read it carefully on the bus back and forth to my Sankirtan spot, and it just changed my life so profoundly that I always had a love for Sri Upanishad. I still do. I recite it every day. I give it to people, and it just means so much to me. So if you pick a book, people, that you like, the enthusiasm come out. Bhagavad Gita is really important. The Sri Upanishad is great. We're finding a lot of people getting the Bhagavatam, the whole Bhagavatam set, are just, it's life-changing to just put it in their home and start off reading it. But there's other small books too that are really helpful for people to get going. There's a plethora of small books that you can get from the BBT that are nice.
I've heard that The Science of Self-Realization is quite a popular book for like a very new person.
Yeah, it's very popular. Came out in 1977, just before Prabhupada left. He saw the book. He didn't mind it, a compendium like that, but he still liked the Bhagavad Gita,
Right.
But it's nice. I always like to give, another book along with the Gita as well, so people get sort of more of an introductory sometimes.
Right. Then we have another question from Naresh Chauhan. What are the best places to distribute?
Well, it depends where you are. Like recently, Naresh, we've been talking to devotees all over the world. Some places they're totally undercover. We can't even talk about where they are because the government is so oppressive in some places that you can be, thrown in jail for this. You can be killed, actually, in some countries where, if you're seen trying to convert people who are in a particular religion in these countries, again, not mentioning any names, you can be in big trouble. So, in those places, devotees have innovated. For instance, some of the countries, they're using the internet a lot, and they have to keep switching around because if they get tracked down there too, they have to, change again. Some of the best places right now during the pandemic, join a calling party, and you can sell books by phone. You can also connect up with programs. We have Sadhana, which means we collect money ahead of time for people whose heart really is into books and they want to see them placed. So we have a mechanism we started almost 10 years or more ago called Motel Gita. It's expanded into multi-channels, just like Amazon started with just books and now it does all kinds of things. So similarly, our Motel Gita, we're rebranding it currently because we put books in so many places. Not just motels, where we've put, hundreds of thousands of books already in motel rooms. But then we have hospitals. It's been really popular now. And we get so many letters back from people who are reading the Gita while they're sick in the hospital. And they're so thankful because they're just desperate in there. And they're feeling really disjointed from reality or from happiness in life. And when they read the Gita, they get a message that really lifts them up.
Wonderful. Chaitanya Prakash says, what would you say to devotees and non-devoted that read the books and pick out quotes and say that this does not resonate with progressive times?
Well, there's two ways that I would answer that, or will answer that. And that is that people often first relate to the devotee who gave them the book and and they see it in you. You're the modern day. Like if you get to know Nam Ras Prabhu, and then Nam Ras Prabhu gives you a book, then the way you see it is through the lens of, well, I know Nam Ras Prabhu, and he's one of the nicest people I ever met, and he's smart and intelligent, and his family's nice, and they want to emulate. So people go by their heart, really. And so that's important, that you have a personal relationship with people so they develop trust in you. And also helping people see the wider perspective of the books. Anybody can cherry pick and pick out anything out of context and say, oh, it's like this, it's like that, it's out of step. But you could say that about any spiritual book in the world, practically. There's the history and context changes so quickly.
Right.
I grew up in, I was born in 1956. I grew up in the 60s and 70s, and things are vastly different now, culturally, sociologically, than they were then. There's certain phraseologies that if I use now, I would be considered really out of step. And that's just a few years ago, to speak of more than that. So when you read Prabhupada's books in their entirety, or at least a little more comprehensively, if that is such a thing, a little more comprehensively, then you start to get the overall picture that these are spiritual books. They're not about the body. It's the opposite, actually. The other kind of quotes and points that come up there are incidental. So if you see them in that context, it's very helpful. So I guess my final answer really to you, Prabhu, is to you have to help people along to understand them. And that's one of the reasons why the Bhagavatam says you have to have the book Bhagavata and the person Bhagavata as well. They go together. It's not we just throw somebody in a room with the books and say, like, now you're Krishna conscious. They have to have society and they have to have association. Prabhu, go ahead.
I feel like the theme is that, like, when someone asks, like, what is the best book to distribute, and you said the book that you like the most, and then how should we explain the books? Like, you should get the book from someone who can explain it to you as well. Like, so there's that kind of personalism there that's very important. That wasn't, I would say, so important, but now as we're bringing that to the forefront, that we should have a relationship, like, and it should be more personal, so the people are attracted to not just the books, but also the person who gave it to them. Essentially, is that a correct way of thinking?
Yeah, very much so. Well put.
Okay, great. Let's see. Okay. Great convo. I know you spoke about books being a timeless medium and how books are powerful vessels. Was impressed by this. Do you not feel that with the passing of time, people will move toward digital mediums instead? It seems people are less hard book keen. I know we touched on this a little, but if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And great to hear from you, Radhika, Prabhu. There are various demographics. Some people prefer one medium over another, but books are not going away. I have stacks of articles, research from the industry itself, that say books are not diminishing. Bookstores still popular, books themselves, people, for some reason, they still buy millions and millions of paper books. The aesthetic is completely different. Look at right now, anybody who's watching media nowadays, you look at any kind of broadcasts from YouTube or on the news, and you'll notice, what are people sitting with? I mean, I showed our whole Sampradaya books, right? If you see, Barack Obama at home or something like that, 99% chance he's sitting in front of a bookshelf.
Yeah.
Right? If you any person they put on the air, there's a bookshelf behind them, and there's books on it, packed. There's so many books on it, they have to put them horizontally, not just vertically. So human beings have a love affair with books that is not diminishing. Industry-wide, yes, there's an increase in some digital medium, but it's not eclipsing the paper book. And that's not to say it might not in the future, but there's no prediction of that happening right now, not in the next decade even, that, it's all finished with books. They're printing as many as ever, if not more. So it's available. It's still a delivery system that people are into.
I'd like to touch a little bit upon our own sadhana in relation with distributing books or sharing Krishna consciousness. Now, if you could kind of explain the connection between the two and the importance of it, please.
Yes, I will do that right now. And if you don't mind, I'm going to share my screen again. May I do that?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'm just getting it set up so I can show you something when I do.
Okay.
And I'm going to share my screen, I hope.
Oh, I see it coming through.
You do?
Yes.
That's good. All right. Here is
Yeah.
what I like to call not the 4 laws of book distribution. Not what I like to call, it's what it is. It started where I left off before, where success is not a mystery, it's a recipe. So this is how we've been able in North America to triple book distribution in the last 10 years, triple.
Wow.
And these are the 4 laws that got us there. And they are effective for an individual, for a small community, for a large community, or for a global Krishna conscious movement in expanding book distribution. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, here they are. First law is your sadhana must be strong. The second is you must get books. The third is the more you show, the more you sell. And 4, you must organize. And here's how they work. The first law, as you brought up very intuitively, your sadhana must be strong. So what is strong sadhana? Strict, serious, and sincere. When you have strict, serious, and sincere sadhana, then you get a taste. And from the taste, you get absorption. That's what we're looking for. That's where all advancement takes place, when you're actually absorbed. Distraction is torture. Focus is nectar. And when we have that, you distribute the overflow. You know, when you walk out in the street from the Bhakti Center and you just chanted the best 16 rounds of your life, your countenance is glowing. And that's what people look at. You know, that it's like, here it is, you know, and they're like, whatever you got, I want it.
Right.
That's what we're distributing. So it all starts with sadhana. Your day starts the night before. You know, it's not hard getting up early. It's hard going to bed on time. That's the main trick. And chanting japa, if you can't chant by yourself without distraction, start a japa circle. We've had Make Japa Great Again going here for a while. And it really works. Online even, we have japa circles where everyone joins together. Go for the basics in sadhana. You win with basics in athletics, in musical practice, everything. Read a chapter of Bhagavad Gita a day. At least chant 1 chapter of Bhagavad Gita a day, because small victories add up. These are Prabhupada's instructions. Please encourage the others to read this Bhagavad Gita at least 1 chapter every day. Bhagavad Gita as it is should be read by all my students at least 1 chapter per day. So to that end, Namras Prabhu, we have this organization called readchad.com. It's called CHAD, C-H-A-D. And this is an underground organization that you can join, where we all chant at least 1 chapter of Bhagavad Gita a day.
Wow. So you're just saying just chant the Sanskrit.
You could do Sanskrit or English, or both the Sanskrit and the English as a minimum.
Right.
Of course, read the purports when you can, but at least do that much and stay always connected to the Gita. And then you might or might not know about this app called Be a Sage, page by page.
Oh, this is wonderful. Yeah, this is amazing.
See the little 41 on here. That's how many he dialed up. Let's say this person's looking at the app and he's put in Srimad Bhagavatam. He wants to finish it in 1 year.
Yeah.
So then he says, then the app tells him for the pages, you have to read 41 a day. And if he put it by shlokas, because sometimes if digital doesn't measure pages, it'll tell you that number here also.
Wow.
And then you can track it on here and how your progress is going and things like that. And if you want to if you read 8 pages a day, you'll finish in 5 years. Wow. And it tells for all the books, you know, so it keeps you on track.
Be a Sage, page by page. It's an app on the App Store. Amazing.
Yeah. So the first thing that we recommend really is this. Oh goodness!
Continue sharing, or
I'll stop sharing again.
Okay.
There we are. Good. I can see you again.
Okay, great.
Okay. So yes, sadhana is the genesis. Strong, strict, sincere sadhana is the genesis of the Sankirtan movement, and the two things go together.
it seems like a lot of things have to align for you to have a good experience on book distribution. You have to go to bed on time, you have to have really good sadhana, you have to be organized, you have to have books. So it seems like, I mean, that could be challenging for people, but it's the part of it. It's a part of the whole package of going out and doing that yagya, I would say.
Well, you know, any way you look at it, as you know, unless you have good sadhana, your life's going to be complicated.
Yeah.
You know, in managing things, it's always confusing. There are always things I don't want to do. Like call somebody, there's a big problem. It's a legal thing. It's a interpersonal relationship. I'm a temple president. I do GBC work. I got, you know, and unless I read Prabhupada's books in the morning, it's really hard to be fortified enough to deal with all these complexities, you know.
Right.
I always recommend to devotees, fortify yourself before you go out and meet the world. You know, you can't handle it, especially nowadays.
Wow.
And the second one's not so hard, Namras, get books. You see, the reason we came up with that, it's like a law of thermodynamics. We went to major universities all over the world, and they did double-blind studies, and they found out that you can't distribute books you don't have. It's such a simple principle. Sometimes you'll miss it. But the fact is, if you get books and you put them in your car, you put them in your house, you put them in your pocket when you walk out the door. Let's just say you're going somewhere. Well, nobody's going anywhere nowadays. But, you know, let's just say you're walking somewhere and you have a case of Sri Upanishads in your closet and you pull one out and you put it in your pocket. And you say to yourself, I'm going down to the store to buy some, you know, rice and dal. And I'm going to distribute this book before I get home. It changes the whole experience.
Wow.
You know what I mean? I mean, if that's what you're thinking, like, okay, who's the guy, you know, who's going to get this book? And some devotees who heard this, they put books. I gave this in a seminar about 7 years ago, and they kept a box of books in their car. And they went to this program, and it was at a wealthy person's house. And he announced, I need some books. I want to give them to my friends and stuff. And who's got books? And they were the only ones that had books in their car. So they went out and brought them in. And he said, I'll buy all of them. And there were only about 25 books, but he gave them $1,000. So the next time I saw him, these two devotees, they said, this thing, get books. We always do it now. Because when you're ready, then Lord Chaitanya will line you up.
Amazing.
And the third one is called the more you show, the more you sell. Right. Because jivas are just wandering around universes looking at stuff, and they're trying to find something nice. That's why people put up billboards that say Coca-Cola. This is nice. You know, it's not true. It's not very nice. I mean, I hate to put it to anybody who likes Coca-Cola, but it's really a sugar water, you know, with some weird flavoring in it and some bubbles. Right. You take bubbles out, you're not going to drink that stuff. But people buy it. Why? Because there's a sign up there and there's pictures of somebody walking on a beach and, you know, it's nice. So if you show them Bhagavatam or Bhagavad Gita, they'll take it. And the last one you mentioned earlier, you have to organize. And if you just organize, and here's one principle that always works. You're going to like this, Namras. If you write down where you have gaps in your own personal sadhana, in your own personal life, or in your Sankirtan team, write down where the room for improvements are, and you make just 3 improvements every month. Make a list, circle the things where you're going to improve 3, and you'll grow an empire. And your life will burst into positive change by making 3 little improvements every month. And if you don't make them, then you might be the same as you were last year. And you might be the same in 10 years. And your Sankirtan party can stay flat forever or never go anywhere unless you make improvements.
Right. 3 gaps that you feel like are in your sadhana and try to work on them every month.
Yeah. And same with Sankirtan team. Make a list when you're walking out the door. It's like, oh, this could have been better. That could have been better. You can find 50 of them if you're really, you know, got your eyes peeled for that. And then once you write them down, you just prioritize it and you say, we're going to make, even if they're tiny. There's an old adage in business that if your organization, in your organization, if the people feel that it's improving, they'll do more than they have to. If they feel it's staying the same, they do just what they have to. And if they feel it's getting worse, they get out of it. They quit. So you have to make incremental improvements in order to keep the environment exciting.
Wow, that's so awesome. Great. Prabhu, I'd like to conclude with your last thing. Last question I would say is that you are so positive. You're known for being very positive, very happy, and very focused on book distribution. So what last concluding words do you have for our listeners, how they can also be like you, how they can be positive and focused, and also be inspired and like unlimitedly motivated to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books?
Well, first thing is to read them.
Read them.
Yeah, I mean, if you read Bhagavad Gita every day, it'll change your life because it's Krishna himself. There's no difference between the Bhagavad Gita and Krishna. And when you read that, it's going to resonate, and you're going to feel a personal relationship with Krishna. And if you read the Bhagavatam, you'll realize. I mean, read at least make a vow to read a certain number of pages every day, and see if that doesn't change your life. You know, a lot of times people say a devotional service, yeah, I'm lagging, this, that, and probably it doesn't work anyway. And, you know, there's all these controversial statements in the books and this, that. Hey, you're not reading them, man. I can guarantee you that's not a consciousness somebody's actually reading the books. If you read these books, your life will change. And that's what it's all about. I mean, you have to make a vow to read a certain number of pages. I would say that's very, very important. And if you do that, you'll be naturally motivated. You know, book distribution doesn't necessarily mean you have to go in the street. There's a lot of busy people I talk to, like GBC type people around the world. And I say, all you have to do is advocate. If you get on a Zoom call with us for 10 minutes and just say, this is a good thing, you should do it. That's all you have to do. And you're going to distribute like 10,000 books. And, you know, Indra Maharaj, he was on our call last week. And, His Holiness Jayapataka Maharaj, and we had Gopal Krishna Maharaj, and His Holiness Radhanath Swami will be on this week, and Vishaka from the temple president and the manor. Such a brilliant speaker and an example of devotional service. And she'll get on and say, book distribution is good. I was there. Prabhupada said do it. And that's all you have to do. Don't worry about anything else. And there are other people they can do backup services. Just help. Say, yeah, this is good. Let me cook something. Let me help drive the books around, Yeah. You don't have to go out and you be on the front line, or you can give money, send in money and, give $1 and say, this is for Salanish Upanishad. And you do that, you're going to go to bed at night feeling like, wow, I just put a Sri Upanishad out into the world. What's going to happen? And you're going to go to bed dreaming about that book.
Amazing. I something that I'd also like to say is that I noticed in your slide, it's just like an overflow. It's like an overflow of your, what is that an overflow of? Is that your overflow of your own inspiration or something?
Yeah. That when you feel this, let's just say you're chanting japa, Hare Krishna mantra.
Yeah.
And you suddenly get in this zone and you feel like, I don't want to stop. There's no more time. You're not looking at your watch. You're not thinking like, when's this going to be over? You're just thinking like, there's something in this that's so nice. I don't even know what it is, but I don't want to move. It's just sweet, right?
Yes.
This is absorption. I mean, these are the beginning stages of absorption, and we should try mightily every day to get in that zone. Yeah. Try. It's niyamagraha is a principle that Rupa Goswami talks about. It's illegal to do devotional service and not get a result. And so you have to go in there with your hands out saying like, give me something here. Come on, give me a molecule. You got to beg for it. Only beggars, who are really asking for it. If you're going shnick, and looking at the Facebook, and then you come out, it's like, this Hare Krishna movement doesn't work. And it's like, you have to work it. Everything works. It's just do it. And when you do that, then positivity and optimism in life, it comes from being in the light. We've got to turn the light on, and there's a switch to flip, but we have to, no one is going to take your hand and make you flip it. You have to flip it yourself.
Wow. Well, I personally feel very inspired book marathons are relevant, are very relevant, and I totally feel that now, and I'd like to be a part of it. So I'm gonna do something after this, and I hope
You just did. You're done.
it's good. It's good. Book distribution is easy and fun. Is that the
Yeah,
one?
right. Fun and easy.
Fun and easy.
Yeah.
So, all my viewers, thank you so much for coming on. We've had about like 110 people listening throughout this, and again, my most amazing, deepest gratitude to you, Vaisesika Prabhu, for coming on here and talking about book distribution. So if you'd like to get engaged in book distribution, participate in any kind of way, please get in touch with Prabhu or his team. They are on Fan the Spark. There's Vaisesika Das's Facebook page. They're on a lot of other social media platforms. And I put the websites in the comments. And thank you so much, Prabhu, again, for joining us. That's episode 34 of the Late Morning Program. Hare Krishna.
Nam Ross, keep up the great work. I love your humor. It really does lift my heart, and I love your show.
Oh, thank you so much.
I think it's really cool what you're doing. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. It means a lot.
Hare Krishna.
Haribol.